Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else. Now, something I will address right here at the top is my voice is going to sound a little weird because for this week my sinuses have been trying to kill me. I have taken several tests, and they have all come back negative for, the thing. Now, moving past that, I actually have recorded this episode. This is the fourth time because it just has not been up to what I think is good enough for what I have the ability to make at the moment. Like, do I have the best sound equipment, the best software, and all that jazz? No, but that's no excuse for it to sound like trash. So I needed to take the night and think about it, and we're just going to re-record this, and we're just going to go for our nice, easy vibes like we normally do. That said, I honestly don't know what I talked about in any of the other three takes, but I want to circle back to something I was talking about on Twitter. I got caught up in this discussion about content creators being scary to approach, and then after people play with them, they tend to be a little more chill on especially the gameplay side of things. And that kind of resonated with me because I found more and more when I build my decks, it doesn't absolutely have to have that bonkers card. Or I can just kind of throw it together with what I have on hand, and if I feel like updating it later, I can, but if I like how the deck's playing, I might not even bother. But more than that, I got thinking about times when I was in the middle of a game and I had an answer in my hand, but I just kind of looked at it and went, well, why? Why do I need to cast this right now? And so I wanted to talk about playing suboptimally. Not to say that you're going to play bad, but I find myself taking measures to not necessarily care about whether I win or not. I'm more caring that we have a good game. A good example of this is in the last stream game I played on was with the Guardian Project, and we were playing Uncommanders, and I was playing the Most Dangerous Gamer. And I had this insane starting hand, and I was just doing the stuff. But I secured myself a large enough lead, and then I kind of just played the game. And then when somebody else was threatening to win, what I did was put myself at 1, made sure they lost, and then subsequently lost. And it wasn't done maliciously, it was done in the name of we're just having a good time with this wacky set. So I think that people that aren't content creators don't have those thoughts. They don't think about, hey, how can I make this more fun for everyone? Because they're not the ones trying to actively get more people to play our game. And I think that's what it boils down to. And I think the response from Dana Roach on Twitter put it best. It's just good business. And yeah, so that's just kind of my thoughts on it for today. And yeah, I think I'll talk about something else again in the second part of this, but I'll see you in a minute. I just want to take a minute to tell you about my Patreon. I know times are hard for everybody, and I know it isn't easy to shuffle around bills and stuff. Believe me, I know that. But if you would like to help support the podcast, you can find the links to my Patreon in my link tree, which is always put into the description of either the video or the audio, wherever you're listening to it. It would really mean the world to me. Honestly, I'm just struggling to make ends meet most weeks. But that's it. That's all. If you want to help, the links will be where you can find them. And we're back. Now, again, this is the 4th time I've been recording this, and I've done things slightly different every time, so in this one, we're going to talk about a deck I'm working on. Not one that I fully have built out yet. And I kind of have to preface this with, every time I look at this, I constantly think, hey, this is what I could turn Linden into. But anybody familiar with my Linden deck understands that I don't really lean into the life gain in Linden. There's only a few cards in there that would make an appearance in this deck to begin with. But what we're talking about is Trelasara Moondancer. It's a green and a white for a 2/2 elf cleric. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Trelasara Moondancer and scry 1. Now, the reason I actually decided to build this was because I had a foil Rite of Harmony sitting around, which is a green and a white for an instant. And whenever a creature or enchantment enters the battlefield under your control this turn, draw a card. It has flashback for 2, a green and a white. And I also had a Glimpse of Nature, which is a single green for a sorcery. Whenever you play a creature spell this turn, draw a card. That one's a leftover from when I was playing Elves in Legacy. But I got the idea of just going full Soul Sisters. Now, what I mean by Soul Sisters is the Soul Sisters. The first one being Soul's Attendant, which is a single white for a 1/1 human cleric. And she says, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may gain 1 life. Now, she does not mention it being under your control, so yeah, there's that. Now, you have her sister, Soul Warden, which is a single white for a 1/1 human cleric. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. You have their awkward cousin, Suture Priest, which is 1 and a white for a 1/1 cleric. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life, but whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life. And then there's their other cousin, Essence Warden, which is a single green for an elf shaman. It's 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life, which is the color shifted from Time Spiral when they did that whole what if this color had this color's ability thing. And yeah, now as far as what's in Linden that would end up in this deck, the first one would be Linden herself. So Linden is white, white, white for a 3/3 human noble with vigilance, and whenever a white creature you control attacks, you gain 1 life. So in Trelasara's case, you attack with even just Trelasara and Linden. Linden will trigger twice, gaining you 2 life and 2 separate triggers, putting 2 counters on Trelasara, which is where I originally got the idea from. But Linden also has Luminarch Ascension, which is 1 and a white for an enchantment. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, if you didn't lose life, you put a counter on it. And then for 1 and a white, you can create a 4/4 angel with flying. You activate this only if it has 4 more counters on it. Let's see, I have my 1 copy of my Intrepid Adversary in there. It's a 1 and a white for a 3/1 human scout with lifelink. When he enters the battlefield, you can pay 1 and a white any number of times, and he gets that many counters. and then he pumps the team for however many counters are on him. The big one is Dawn of Hope. Dawn of Hope is 1 and a white for an enchantment. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card, and then you can pay 3 and a white to make a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. And then the number 1 card that's in Linden that would end up in this deck is Archangel of Thune. 3 white for a 3/4 angel with flying and lifelink. Whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So that was kind of the basis for where I started building this deck, and then I kind of just went through other stuff I had laying around, and I found stuff like Ajani's Welcome. It's a single white mana for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Auriok Champion is white for a 1/1 cleric. It has protection from black and red, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may gain 1 life. Impassioned Orator is 1 and a white for a 2/2 human cleric. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. So that was just kind of the starting basis. And then I started doing what I do whenever I build a deck, and I just kind of went through boxes and found stuff with relevant text. So the bird trio of Healer's Hawk and Healer's Flock. The joke being Healer's Hawk is a single white for a 1/1 bird with flying and lifelink, and the Healer's Flock is just 3 Healer's Hawks stapled together. It's white for a 3/3 bird with flying and lifelink. Trostani, Selesnya's Voice, is green white for a 2/5 Dryad. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to the creature's toughness, which is the important bit. It does have a green and a white and tap to populate. There are a couple of ways to make tokens in this deck, but for the most part, we're just there for the enter the battlefield ability. Retreat to Kazandu is 2 and a green for an enchantment with landfall, and whenever a land enters, you either put a counter on a creature or you gain 2 life. In Trelasara, you essentially get both, because if you gain the 2 life, you put a counter on Trelasara. We have Gallic Readers in here. 1 and a green for a 1/1 Elf Druid. It has the Alliance ability, which is whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to choose one of his abilities. They all trigger once a turn. You can either put a counter on him, make a tapped treasure, or gain 2 life. So if we're doing a thing where we have multiple creatures enter in a turn, we can get, the 2 life, which will put a counter on Trelasara, and then put a counter on the Gallic Readers. Just stuff like that. Corsair of Krufix, which is a card that I have not played in a while, and it's just kind of been in a box because I haven't been playing a lot of land strategies, but this one specifically has a life gain strategy too. 1 green for a 2/4 Centaur. You play with the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library if it's a land card, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Daxos, Blessed by the Sun, is white for a 2-star demigod. His toughness is equal to your devotion to white, and whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, you gain 1 life. Abiding Grace. I always went buy this in a box and never figured out where exactly I wanted it. But it's 2 and a white for an enchantment, and it says at the beginning of your end step you can choose one. You either gain 1 life, or you return target creature card with mana value 1 from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, namely, if we're gaining the life, we put a counter on Trelasara, but also a lot of our wardens, a lot of our soul sisters have mana value 1, so this is just a good way to get them back. But then we just kind of got into whatever I had laying around, like Revitalize. 1 and a white for an instant, draw a card and gain 3 life. Lucky Offering is a single white for a sorcery. To destroy target artifact with mana value 3 or less, you gain 3 life. Thragtusk, 4 and a green for a 5/3 beast. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 5 life. When it dies... when it leaves the battlefield, you make a 3/3 beast. Bond of Flourishing. 1 and a green for a sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. You gain 3 life. Then we have our trio of how Trelisara is going to try and end the game. First up, we have On Sarah's Wings, which is 3 and a white for an aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature is legendary. Gets +1/+1, has flying, vigilance, and lifelink. We have Unflinching Courage, which is 1 a green and a white for an aura with enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2, trample, and lifelink. And then we have the Behemoth Sledge, which is just the equipment version of Unflinching Courage. It's 1 a green and a white for an equipment. It has equip for 3. And the equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has lifelink and trample.
Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulpey of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.